Welcome to Get Wisdom Live with Carl Mollison and Brian Kelly. What if God was also a co-host? What if the historically rare ability to question God directly and get profound answers back has been rediscovered? What would God say to today's sophisticated but deeply troubled world? Get Wisdom Live is here to share those answers with you. Here is Carl Mollison and Brian Kelly. Welcome to another episode of Get Wisdom Live. I'm Brian Kelly, along with Get Wisdom founder and director, Carl Mollison. This week, we're going to get creators' perspective on being holy. Now, they'll come on. We're going to go down this road. Yes, we are going to go down this road. And it turns out, Carl, there's actually a lot to this concept that is refreshing to hear from creator. It's not a holier than thou, but it's a very illuminating exploration for sure.
Well, it's actually a very profound topic. And I guess in retrospect, not too surprisingly, because we're talking about the Almighty and where that all originates. So why shouldn't it be profound and also pretty meaningful? So many things associated with God are kind of esoteric, distant, once removed, because it's seemingly not a part of our lives directly. And of course, one of the things we've learned all along the way with Get Wisdom, it's all about God all day long, everything that exists and all the implications that represents, every activity done by every being, and the animate and the inanimate. There's all a plan and an interconnectedness. So we're going to hear about a lot of things from a fresh perspective, because we're getting it from the proverbial horse's mouth, so to speak. This is the Almighty who's going to be talking. So,
yeah. I mean, I thought this was finally a good topic to explore because, it's such a big part of like the Catholic Church, for instance. The word holy, you go to a mass, you're probably going to hear it 50 times in the course of the mass, So it's always been one of the kind of foggy words that I'm not really sure what it means entirely. I got some ideas, but I thought it'd be really nice for creator to weigh in on it finally. So we're going to get that right now. You asked creator Carl, Merriam-Webster's dictionary has a number of definitions for the word holy. The first one is exalted or worthy of complete devotion as one perfect in goodness and righteousness. And Collins Dictionary defines it as, if you describe something as holy, you mean that it is considered to be special because it is connected with God or a particular religion. What is creator's perspective on the definition of the word holy?
All right, this is creator's words. This indeed is somewhat subjective and in the eye and mind of the beholder. We would use a somewhat broader definition than most, as we think of everything in existence you are aware of, and much you are not, as being holy, as it is our creation and made for a high purpose to exude holiness, express holiness, share and spread holiness in everything it does, everything it touches, and every consequence that ensues. That would be quite a stretch for many who are focused on the details of human existence, much of which is dark, corrupted, and faulty in execution, as well as conception in many cases. You yourselves, as soul-based beings, have been corrupted quite heavily and are scarred by many traumas to distort your very makeup, at least the component that is in the physical undergoing a reincarnation. So we will not quibble with you here, but this is an important point to get across, that the universe itself has a divine purpose, a holy one. That is quite a lot of food for thought right there. To then turn around and focus on a micro level at wrongdoing within the earth plane as being outside that scheme because it seems unholy. So therefore it puts the lie to our sweeping definition of holiness and that which is holy. This is why we've told you before, we take the long view of things. We do not judge, and we do not give up on those who transgress, even grievously. And this includes the most horrific and horrendous wrongdoer, no matter how vicious, senseless, vile, and perverse wrongdoing might get by the frank psychopath indulging bloodlust and depravity. We see through all that to the soul of that being and its origin and know the true potential is much, much greater and would never throw the baby out with the bathwater, not even if it is imperfect and seemingly in a dreadful state. That is because we always have hope for you and all of our creations to come full circle, even when they get off track or are distorted in some way by an outside agent, influencing things for the worse and stirring up trouble through creating an imbalance energetically that might persist for a good long while and cause much suffering and difficulty. All wrongs can be righted. That is why to condemn and abandon anyone is a karmic misstep as well as an unholy act. Accordingly, then, how can that wrongdoer being judged and becoming an outcast be regarded as unholy? They are only acting in an unholy fashion. But that is a surface characteristic of local circumstances and not the sum total of their being and its value. This teaches many lessons as a simple concept. This is why we call it food for thought. It could indeed be the inspiration for light workers of all kinds to awaken to the challenges with inner conviction they are serving the divine to rescue the perpetrators themselves, not just the victims from their wrongdoing, because the perpetrators will suffer more greatly in the end and are no less worthy in our eyes. It is just that at the moment they have strayed from divine alignment, but not without hope of return and a path that can be taken, especially with your help and a desire for their rescue. The fact it will rescue you in the doing is a double blessing, and again speaks to the wisdom of the interconnectedness of everything, conferring holiness on every part as well.
Obviously, when we ask these questions, we don't know the answer in detail. But I know myself, I have an idea of what the answer might be, and maybe even probably will be. And I have to say, on this particular one, I was I felt like I got my test back from the teacher and had an A on it. This is exactly the answer that I wanted, to hear from Creator, and I was just thrilled when I read it because it's really phenomenal.
Well, this is certainly a non-human perspective for one
Yeah,
thing. You can quibble with it if you're thinking that this can't be right, but
right.
and I'm sure many would have that reaction. How can God be, such a bleeding heart and so tolerant of the depravity of the wrongdoers that cause so much pain and suffering, the
Yeah.
killers and all of the ugliness in our world? But this speaks to the fact there's a way out of that. There's a way to
Yes.
overcome it. And
Exactly.
that's what Get Wisdom is all about. So it's very fitting that this message would show up here when
Yes.
we go to the Almighty for answers about even the most simple concept that one would think could be answered with a sentence like the dictionary did.
Right. Right.
But we're getting a whole new view of what holiness can mean if it's so
Exactly.
comprehensive. It
Absolutely.
includes even the ugly and awful parts of the world.
And would have to. Would have to. But this is exactly the kind of answer I would expect from a loving creator. So that's one of the reasons I was so thrilled with it. You ask Creator in the King James Bible, Romans chapter 12, verse 1. St. Paul says, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies in a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. What is Creator's perspective?
All right, Creator says this passage and its perspective speak to the idea of humans themselves being holy. but with an obligation to value, recognize that special value and take action in some way or another to live out the implications, because it is both a statement of condition and a kind of mandate. Nothing is created to be a dead end, to be static and unchanging forever. The entirety of the universe is love in action, love on the march, love as a change agent, a vehicle for growth and learning, as well as a destination and consequence of learning one's lessons and achieving enlightenment through healing, to become at one with us and the rest of the human family, individually and collectively. This is the journey you are a part of. It is a long term goal for you to fit into the schema and do your part. And going beyond that, to serve the cause of the divine and seeing to the needs of your brethren as well. In other words, giving of yourselves. It is the recognition of your holiness that can be the inspiration for taking such action. After all, if you do not know who you are, how can anyone expect greatness of you? If you do not know you are holy, acting in a holy fashion may be foreign to your thinking and might be the last thing you would ask of yourself if you are embedded in the slings and arrows of earthly existence in the physical and are doing all you can simply to hang on and survive, just providing creature comforts for yourself and loved ones, safety and security to keep going. And that leaves little room for loftier notions, let alone such a broad goal as promoting divinity and all that represents. Yet, this is why you were made in the first place and have it within you to use, both as fuel and as a kind of inner comfort, that no matter how difficult things might be as your life unfolds, you always have a loftier perch to return to and a true friend in the Almighty who loves you deeply and cherishes you and wants you to thrive and succeed. Taking comfort in that reality, to have in your awareness that you are indeed special and cherished by us, we hope will provide fuel for you to find within the desire and the capability to serve others as well as yourself, as not just a duty, but an opportunity to be a fuller version of yourself in that holiness, which indeed is special, because in the moment you are more than you and who you think you are. You are all you have ever been and all you ever will be, because you are the connecting link between past and future. This puts in new perspective the metaphor of standing on the shoulders of giants and thinking about great accomplishments explained as giving credit to one's predecessors. We see you all as giants in your own right and building on all your achievements as you go. You are all great and becoming greater. That is what holiness represents.
Well, this answer from Creator is so in line with whole Creator's delivery of, amongst this project, all the answers and channelings that we gotten from him. It's positive, it's uplifting. Creator is not one to admonish that much. Instead, this is more of an invitation to consider holiness as a worthy goal for your life. And Creator comes through and says, "Hey, I understand. You're busy. You're worried about keeping a roof over your head. You're just barely hanging in there sometimes. There's safety and security concerns, family. Where's there room for loftier notions? But yet the invitation is there. You really need to consider this, is what Creator is saying."
Well, and you're getting divine truth here, divine wisdom. And this is really quite special and it is awesome. And I cannot overstate how striking it is to me personally to have these words come out of my mouth as I'm doing the channeling of Creator. and listening to a recording of your questions, Brian, and then these words come forth with beautiful illustrations, very simple but profound and almost kind of magical in linking things together in a fresh way. This is something I couldn't do if I spent all day just to answer one of these questions in this fashion.
I
I'd probably
concur.
spend days trying to rework it and polish it and find some better way to state it and put the things I forgot to put in first and add them later because I couldn't think of it in the moment. But this just comes out all of a piece, grammatically perfect, correct, and holy
Holy,
in its
sublime,
aspects.
profound, and not preachy. Not at
Yes.
all. And that, I think, is really the testament. U.S. creator Frederick William Faber said,
You missed one here.
did I miss one? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I did miss one. I was all lined up for that. So here we go. Jerry Bridges said, we are a 100% let me start from the beginning and I'll cut out this last minute or so in the edit. U.S. creator Jerry Bridges said, we are 100% responsible for the pursuit of holiness. But at the same time, we are 100% dependent upon the Holy Spirit to enable us in that pursuit. The pursuit of holiness is not a pull yourself up by your own bootstraps approach to the Christian life. What is Creator's perspective?
Creator says, this is a quite perceptive analysis because it reflects the ideal we have so often presented and discussed with you of divine partnership, the need for you to seek and cultivate a divine partnership with us to expand and amplify all you do to help you stay on track, in alignment, and have the fuel you need in terms of divine inspiration and guidance, as well as encouragement and the deeper wherewithal to not lose sight of what is possible and settle for less, but to keep before you that image of that ultimate holiness that seems so lofty and beyond human reach. But we would say you are drawing the exactly wrong conclusion from making that comparison. When you see a shortfall on your end of things compared to the lofty notion of God and all it represents to you, that is not a condemnation of you as a lesser being that is flawed and meager and thus of much, much lesser value. The way to look at the contrast is to show you how much growth, expansion, achievement, and attainment are still possible for you to acquire and bring about through your involvement, determination, and effort to work on that goal. We are not promoting a fanatical perfectionism, but only pointing out the reality you are not yet done in terms of what is possible. We would say you are more just getting started. There is much more to do. But with that will be the rewards that there is much more to learn and much more growth that will result. As you learn and grow and expand your horizons, all you do, all you become, and all you are as a consequence will be greater and will be more holy as well, because it will be closer to our level than before. So we would agree you have a responsibility for the pursuit of holiness, but you need not do that all on your own. That would not even be possible. For one thing, you must be in alignment with us to advance. So, what that means is for your journey to advance and succeed, you need to become closer to us, to be more like us, and have more of what you see is valuable. That holiness that represents an ultimate state of completion and excellence. You are a work in progress, and so are we. Only we are further along than you. That can bring you much encouragement that what is meant to happen When we remind you of the divine, what it can be, and our perspective about things as we answer your questions, it is always to encourage, instill hope, and inspire you to the greatness you yourselves can create and bring into your world.
So, I looked at this quote and I thought that it really spoke to the need for partnership with the divine. And I'm not even sure that the person who said the quote, Jerry Bridges, really meant it that way. Because one way of reading this is that you have to rely completely on God for your holiness. That God has to bestow it upon you, and it's not an attainment; it's a gift, right? But I look at the maybe it wasn't intentional, but nevertheless, the words come across as a speaking of a need for a partnership, and that we do have to pursue the goal of holiness, but we can get help along the way, and that we should also keep our eyes on the prize and not be looking backwards or even to our sides and condemning, our past mistakes, but really focus on the future, focus on the goal.
Yeah, well, and Creator points out very clearly that we will not advance without Creator.
Right.
So there is
Exactly.
a dependence here,
Sure.
and we're linked together or not as we choose, but it will make all the difference if we say yes to Creator's invitation here.
And that's the
So
important thing.
again, we have an answer that is very loving and very supportive
Yes.
of human beings in their state of ignorance and lack and seeming weakness in so many ways.
And even to
Creator has
shuttle them.
hope for us.
Yes. And that's a good thing. So keep your eye on that, people. U.S. creator Frederick William Faber said, happiness is a great power of holiness. Thus, kind words, by their power of producing happiness, have also a touch of producing holiness, and so of winning men to God. What is Creator's perspective?
Creator says, this is a happy question with happy meanings and a happy role to play in developing your understanding. Happiness is a state of love in a kind of abundance, not being a narrow focus, but a more general loving condition you call happiness. But the love is spread around you to keep everything on a reasonable level so you are content, in the moment at least, with where you are, what has happened, and what your prospects look like at this point. On reflection, you will realize there are bigger and better things you can aspire to. But if you are happy, you are doing well because you will undoubtedly have accomplished a great deal to achieve that level of equanimity where enough things are in good shape, you have little to complain about, and thus can be happy and feel good about who you are, what is going on, and what you have to work with for your future. Your state of happiness, in fact, is a perfect diagnostic indicator of how your journey is progressing, particularly so for those who are still unhappy. That can be for many, many reasons. If the problems are serious and bringing pain and suffering, there is quite a lot to do still. Much of that burden resides with you to work on your partnership with us and request the right things that can help you advance through healing. All are on a learning curve to figure out how to get the most from life and how to bring divine assistance to bear to help themselves and their loved ones, let alone taking on the challenges of humanity as a whole and all the problems you face collectively. But one must start somewhere. This is the wisdom in the saying, charity begins at home. You cannot be an effective warrior for the light if you are in a state of disrepair, dishevelment, discouragement, and despair. So, first aid is certainly indicated to get you patched up so you can return to the fray. You will raise yourself up by doing more to work towards that happiness that may seem elusive at times or even impossible for you. We promise you that is not the case. There is always a path to something better, and then something still more desirable, more advantageous. Finding that path and the courage to follow it and working through the obstacles along the way will bring rewards of their own from the execution. It will be a source of pride and tremendous satisfaction in accomplishing the tough challenges and overcoming large obstacles to growth and happiness. For those blessed with an easy life, where happiness is readily experienced and the normal state of affairs for them, we would say, you are blessed, but there is still more you need to do. It is those in good shape who have fewer problems and therefore greater strength and resources to work with who can become highly effective advocates for the divine, lightworkers joining the task of solving the problem of evil and reckoning with the darkness. There are no end of challenges you are needed to address. When happiness turns into complacency and then a kind of stagnation and even indolence, where someone is resting on their laurels, enjoying the good life and tuning out the plight of others less fortunate, you are denying your heritage and your destiny both. You were created to advance. There is always a path allowing advancement, even if it requires taking on great challenges and great risks. The high and mighty get there through sweat equity. All have worked for it, if not in the current life, in prior lifetimes. Some people are blessed with a life of rest and recuperation that is a kind of planning and preparation for a more distant future that is coming. So it is not fair to judge others. If all see life as an opportunity to do more and be more, you will have more accomplished at the end of your lifetime. The choices are always yours to make. We are here to guide and inspire, but only if you ask this of us, because you are wanting more yourselves. That inner disquiet is a good thing because it will spur you on to greatness.
So we're hearing that Creator is really interested in your growth. Your spiritual growth is a much more important thing to Creator than your transient personal happiness. I mean, Creator likes it when you're happy, but that's really not the purpose. And Creator even says happiness is like an abundance of love, which is sounds wonderful, and it is, but it's also unrealistic to think that that can be your constant, ongoing state at all times.
Especially not in a dark world. And that's the place we are in, unfortunately. So
Yeah,
sorry to burst the bubble here of joy with all of these wonderful words, but they're here for a purpose and actually very much in contrast to what most would say is reality.
yeah.
And in a godless world that is tearing apart at the seams, it's a pretty dire future to be staring at without something that you can count on to turn the tide. And that's what the divine is for.
Yeah.
But you have to be ready, willing, and involved.
And you can't live in this world. And even if you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth and you got all the skills and talents and you got money and you got freedom and all this stuff, you can't help but notice that there's suffering going on elsewhere. There's other people having it rough. So nobody escapes the call to do something more that you can do. So that's the point that Creator's making here, I think. You asked Creator, Monica Johnson said, Holiness through Christ's Spirit is the accountability every Christian should be striving towards. What is Creator's perspective?
Creator says, this is an insightful reckoning with the reality of Christ's sacrifice and the meaning of his mission life to the broader humanity. That by his example, he was showing you the way forward to work for the greater good. And that greater good includes the needs of the downtrodden, the least among you, the suffering, the outcasts. They are a symptom of a larger issue. It is not a fruitless and exhausting pursuit of perfection that is so often the conclusion of people comparing themselves to Jesus Christ and feeling that is an impossible standard. The point of making a comparison is not to show you up, to make you discouraged and feeling you're hopelessly inadequate compared to the seeming lofty achievements and divine alignment and demonstrated effectiveness he exhibited as an ambassador of the divine, but rather the opposite. It is to remind you of what is possible and the reality many others have made greater sacrifices than you will likely ever be called upon to make, and do so willingly and with great effectiveness. Even at the cost of their physical lives, they rose in the moment to heights of greatness in achieving a pinnacle of holy alignment, demonstrating for all the world what love can do, what it means, why it is important as an encouragement to others to cultivate the bringing of love again and again and again. This needs to be done tirelessly with passion and commitment. You are not expected to be the miracle worker Christ was. The miracle comes from the interweaving of your energies with the energies of many, many others. That is the plan, not for you to be a Messiah, special and loftier than those around you, to stand out and work wonders. It is enough to be human, but an effective human, a bringer and giver of love on a human scale. People underestimate the power of the love they hold and can dispense if they are willing. That can start a wave of love going that can change the world. You may not live to see the end result of the love you are launching along the way during your life. But this is the beauty of all you represent. That holiness within you is no different than what Jesus Christ was feeling and did with his energy. All he stood for stemmed from his love for humanity and the cause of the divine. Knowing humanity was imperiled and needed an advocate, someone to remind everyone of the true meaning of holiness, all it represents as a standard and as a goal as well. He lived in a time where the gap between the human and the divine was wide indeed, and this he pointed out again and again. In bridging the gap with miracle healings, he was showing both what is wrong with the world and what can be done to right the wrongs by following his example. Each human being is different, having different skills and talents and inner wherewithal as a consequence of all their past history, their karmic liabilities, their strengths and weaknesses, but all can choose to serve the cause of love. And if they do so, will be true to themselves in mirroring the holiness they express, and is their heritage and destiny to always be a part of. You chose to start this journey. You will also choose each and every day how to advance or retreat or be stagnant. So, having Jesus Christ as a touchstone is a good reminder of the possible and why it matters. This is why the story of Christ's life and sacrifice is retold again and again and will never be obsolete, because the need for his mission life has not diminished. He is not here to contribute any longer, but you are. That is the message in referencing him and bringing his story into your awareness. It is to remind you what needs doing.
And there's an awful lot that needs doing. When I think of the sacrifice Christ made, it's kind of similar in some ways to the way we think about the sacrifice a soldier makes, especially when they go into a desperate battle where their odds of coming out alive are rather slim. No soldier goes into battle, wanting death. That's not the point of going into battle. And Christ came down here to pursue a mission, which Creator lays out here quite honestly, that the gap between the reality and the divine was quite stark at that time period. It needed a role model. But any role model that's going to come down into that atmosphere, into that environment, is putting themselves at great risk. And that's essentially what happened. Christ chose to come into that environment, be the role model, and assume the risk of being apprehended and taken down in the way that he was. So it's not that he came down specifically to die on the cross, But yet the dying on the cross was the consequence of making a high risk decision to come down here and do something profound.
Well, we're also told that is the reason he isn't coming back. Sorry to disappoint the faithful who believe in the return of the Messiah. And the reason is he'd be taken out,
Yeah.
probably as an infant.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This is how the darkness works. They know who we've been in other lives because they look in the Akashic records. And when you come down and have been a humanitarian or a do gooder, they'll sideline you one way or another, whatever it might take. And that could mean an elimination. So this is the world we're in.
Yeah.
So we have to tread carefully, but still get things done. And that's quite a challenge. But it means every life counts. Every life is important. And what you do with it matters.
Absolutely. You asked Creator. Mother Angelica said, every Christian who strives for holiness of life experiences dryness of soul. It is to most people a heart-rending experience. It is a paradox, for the soul becomes confused when it realizes the harder it strives and the harder it strives, the further away Jesus seems to be. What can Creator tell us?
Creator says, this quotation is a living testimony about the issue of achieving holiness in comparison to an external standard like Jesus Christ, and the frustrations it can bring from recognizing personal weakness and inadequacies, and feeling the helplessness and powerlessness represented by the lives of many. When one's status and place in things seems truly minuscule and inconsequential, the assumption always is there is a lack of wherewithal to change things for the better, and the possibility of doing an act of greatness truly impossible. Again, we would say that greatness is in the eye of the beholder, more so than an absolute that can be quantitated precisely and measured with a yardstick. There are many acts of greatness that are a simple act of love and might only reside within the heart of a lonely person, cut off from life in many respects, but still carrying within an inner spark of divinity, allowing that inner light to shine and treasuring what it represents. That recognition is an act of divinity, an expression of holiness that can be sustaining and even life saving at the right times. It is an act of greatness to appreciate divine love and its workings, especially when one has so little in one's own life, but treasures the realization it is out there, at least for some. That realization may well keep hope alive because what it is doing is raising up the person by the very thought, bringing them into greater divine alignment. That itself is an act of healing and empowerment and will be felt within as strengthening, if only for a time. But such self strengthening can be a bridge to something more and constitute a path forward, if only in a roundabout way. But it can get the job done if people choose to keep going when all they have to work with is the idea of God as a source of nourishment and inner strength.
I would say that this was an interesting quote because Mother Angelica was obviously a nun in the Catholic Church. She was the founder of a religious order. And this idea of dryness is something I have encountered in reading books about passages of saints and stuff. There's a famous book called The Dark Night of the Soul by St. John of the Cross, which talks about, this in the contemplative life, the pursuit of God can create a dryness because you're not getting the results you think you should be getting as you're pursuing your activities. So I think in many ways it's probably a great indicator of impatience. That you're reaching for the gold ring and it's taking too long and you're not making the progress you think you should be making, and you get a little bit discouraged along the way. But Creator comes back and says this is why it's important to maybe survey what other people are going through and see that it is possible to reach the goals you set for yourself, and that can keep you going, Carl.
Well, we all need examples, and that's what the occasional miracles are great in doing. They're an inspiration for others and a kind of reward, if only observed secondhand, because it shows the possibilities. And that is pretty much what we face coming into life. The
Yeah.
idea of God, and if we're lucky, that is shared with us. And maybe we're exposed to teachings to make it become believable for us personally. Others really lose out. But even with that, it doesn't come with a guarantee, and it's still elusive. It's still largely a hidden force,
Yeah.
and that's purposeful. God can make a splash if it wanted to, but the point is to instill us with the challenge of developing faith and sticking to those principles of the divine to make our way. And that will bring rewards. Those who partner with Creator and ask for signs will be shown them if they develop sufficient belief. And usually it's that there is just not quite enough belief. There's doubts a
Yeah.
person harbors, and that makes a difference. But it doesn't negate the exercise or the reality of the divine. And
Yeah.
this is hard for people to understand and expect. Everybody wants it easy,
Oh yeah. Yeah. We
and it
want it.
isn't easy. It takes
We
work.
we want it now. We don't have we don't want to have to work a lot to get it. But keep in mind that just because it hasn't happened to you yet doesn't mean it won't. And if you keep your eyes on the prize and keep moving steadily forward, I'm certain the goal will be attained at some point. U.S. creator R.C. Sproul, in his book Choosing My Religion, wrote, "If you don't delight in the fact that your Father is holy, 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 then you are spiritually dead. You may be in a church, you may go to a Christian school, but if there is no delight in your soul for the holiness of God, you don't know God. You don't love God. You're out of touch with God. You're asleep to his character." What is Creator's perspective?
Creator says, at the risk of this being seen as an act of ego, we must agree with the basic precepts described in this quotation that our holy nature is not only real, it is important to be recognized as a superior attainment, an example to all in what is possible, because to the extent you can emulate and reach towards the state of completion we represent, it will raise you up in the doing, make you better, more fulfilled, and a greater resource for benefiting others in the bargain. That is what life is for, to raise you up and help you to raise up those around you. If all across the world the strong would raise up the weak, sooner or later there would be no weakness to be raised up. That is the example we wish to set. That state of holiness is indeed special because it is demanding, it is lofty, it is hard to attain as a physical being because so much works against you, because you are starting out in a weakened condition, in a state of incompletion and disconnection, almost the worst of all possible worlds. Yet we want you to master it and overcome it. And that state of lack and incompletion will take considerable effort, dedication, and a kind of passionate zeal to become successful, especially in comparing your achievements with our capabilities. But this is not meant to discourage, to hold up an impossible state of perfection and make you accountable for the shortfall, to enumerate your flaws, let alone punish you for deficiencies, mistakes, and inadequacies. That would be non divine. And it is also non divine when you do that to yourselves. And this is why our example is meant as encouragement. It is to be taken as a positive influence and standard to show you what your future will be like when you are raised up to a similar degree. That is a good thing and will serve you if you appreciate the message for what is truly wanting to bring about. You really you need to be in the know to understand who God is, what our makeup consists of, why that is so, where you fit in, why you were created, who you are meant to be, and what your role in life is all about. And all that means in noting the discrepancy between what is possible and what you have achieved thus far that falls short. The whole point of this perspective, the takeaway message of greatest value, is that having an exalted perspective of us can inspire you and show you the great value represented by partnering with us in all you do. That is the opposite of having a burden. You are not being paired with someone physically and mentally challenged who will be a drag on your progress and achievements, draining away energy and holding you back from what you could do and gain for yourself. In being a caretaker and guardian to a lesser being who is needy and demanding and a burden and obligation, it will take away something from you. It is the opposite. When you partner with something greater, more lofty, and comprised of unlimited energetic resources, you are setting yourself up for victory. This will not be handed to you. The hard part is learning how to be an effective partner to gain the most from the relationship. Everything about that will involve you becoming more holy to thus be a match to our energies. How we think, how we act, how our energy works, so that you will be in a state of allowing expectation and desire to hear from us and want our participation in your life. You will never gain more than when you are desiring to have more love to give and wanting to help others as well as yourself. Nothing will be better. Unleash the power of the universe to be at your disposal than to desire a life of dispensing love to others and raise everyone up. That is the model and the template we can offer you to follow. It is the key to success if you have the wisdom to see this and embrace it.
From the message, I'm thinking of partnership. Yesterday was Thanksgiving, and we both know that Creator is no fan of football, but Thanksgiving is a big football day for a lot of people. So I'll use an analogy of the quarterback and the receiver. Really good quarterback and receiver tandems are true partnerships because the receiver needs the quarterback, but the quarterback needs the receiver. And they're only going to be good if they practice, if they work at their craft, if they expand their playbook, if they enhance their partnership, work on their partnership, strengthen their partnership, expand their partnership, they get better and better and better. And I think that's the essence of what Creator is saying here, is that we're here to attain greatness together, but you have to step up and play your role in the partnership.
Well, I would expand that analogy one further step in that Get Wisdom is here to help you heal your way back into better divine alignment, to have a better partnership. So it's like if you have a team and you've got those leaders, the captain, the quarterback, and the ones who carry the ball, catch the long passes, and so on, have a special place, special role, and so on. But when people get injured and then they're on the sidelines, they're out of the game and they're falling behind.
Yeah.
They're not advancing, they're not growing, they're not learning because you learn through doing and so on. So when you're incapacitated, you get stuck.
Yes.
And that's why healing is a godsend and requires the divine to really do it right.
Yes, absolutely. And you can help heal yourself and others by engaging Get Wisdom and learning about the Lightworker Healing Protocol. And we're going to talk about that right now, Carl. You ask Creator, is holiness an end in itself or a means to an end? Can Creator tell us how empowered prayer and the Lightworker Healing Protocol enhance and empower the pursuit of holiness? And most important, remove the obstacles to the practical attainment of holiness for both the individual and humanity itself.
Okay, here we go. Creator says, the concept of holiness is a handy description of divinity as both a challenge and an opportunity. This is why it is both a means to an end and an end in itself, because you are starting from a state of disconnection and a state of incompletion, and it will be the attainment of greater holiness, a greater depth and breadth in all you are in the moment that will mark your progress, your growth, your learning, and thus your success in advancing the cause of the divine and the expression of your very soul in the doing. We would say that holiness is a synonym for lovingness. Loftiness is the attainment of a loving state of being. So the word holy and the concept of holiness has often been misunderstood and has many times served to keep people separate from us rather than be a useful description that has many times served to keep you that would inspire and point the way for you to succeed in your life more readily, more completely, and more rewardingly, because the term seems vague. And that is owing to the fact you are disconnected from us. So, an attribute of ours, represented by the term holiness, will seem vague to you, and ineffable quality, unattainable by a human being, even. And that adds to the separation and state of disconnection to represent a kind of impossibility that we are up here and you are down there, and never the twain shall meet, or certainly approach the same state of being. That is most unfortunate, because if holiness were truly understood as lovingness, you would, most of you, relate to that quite naturally and strongly from your own inner readiness for love and yearning for love. That is not simply a human quality, but a divine one. Your yearning for love is a yearning for holiness. Your diminished state, being a diminished and flawed human being compared to the loftiness of the divine, is only another way of describing having a lack of love in your life being felt and expressed. The problem then becomes, if love comes from the divine, how can that be attained? This is a pragmatic and meaningful perspective, because the search for love will lead you to discover the obstacles in the way. And that has everything to do with your life purpose and mission here. As a warrior for the light, a light worker supreme, capable of reckoning with and solving the problem of evil, you must have the wherewithal and the tools you need to step into that role and make that journey a successful one. Solving the problem of evil will mean bringing love back into a loveless world, a loveless galaxy, and raising up loveless beings by helping bring about a restoration of the possibility of love being felt and shared by the loveless. You will need divine assistance in this, because it is a daunting task, but nothing is impossible for the divine. That is what you need to keep in mind. We are giving you the tools you will need to have enough leverage to bring divine power to bear in a way that can help you to win this struggle, this contest between good and evil you have taken on. Empowered prayer will help restore your understanding and your inner alignment with truth that will better allow love to flow into you. And that will have many advantages. It will give you fuel to work with for all you do and choose, and certainly and to contribute to the world. The obstacles in the way need healing, not strength alone, and certainly not a confrontation and a conflict through acts of war. Attacking your enemies will invite disaster. They are more powerful than you are with respect to the physical plane and its energies and the advanced technologies they have at their disposal to manipulate and harm you. and unleash destructive power far beyond your capabilities. To attack them is, in fact, suicidal in the outcome that would follow. You cannot love them directly to achieve your goal either. Being loveless, they do not feel love nor value it. They see it as a weakness and a kind of folly and mock you for your loving inclinations. They will not respond to love you might give them in treating them like you would treat a human who might be misguided but lost and greatly needing the effects of love to raise them up. This is a divine level problem that only the divine can address effectively. That is the way you will be a love ambassador, acting as an advocate for their deliverance, but not bringing it about with them and through them directly through your ministrations and an outreach to attempt establishing a truce. What is needed is for healing and lots of it to be brought to bear. That is how they can be raised up to have the possibility of feeling love once again. That can only come about when requested powerfully and specifically. That is what the Lightworker Healing Protocol was designed to do, to give you the power as a practitioner to be an advocate for the rescue, raising up, and restoration of your perpetrators, as well as your fellow victims of their cruelty. Empowered prayer can enlist the divine to step into the breach so you are not alone. That can begin the work to help turn the tide, but it will take intensive and high level healing to truly win the day and restore a greater balance. So the interlopers can have a shift in thinking to at least delay their plans for human annihilation. And then there will be time for more healing, both to raise them up, but also to heal humanity so you can be raised up as well and undergo ascension, a long awaited and long promised plan of Creator that will be both an advancement and reward for all of the challenges and suffering you have endured to get to this point. If enough human beings used empowered prayer and then learn or request enough healing using the Lightworker Healing Protocol, this will turn the tide and begin to release you from the grip of the interlopers. This will allow time for enough healing for you to advance, ascend from the earth plane to a higher dimensional state of existence. And from that higher vantage point, you will be able to continue the healing, but never again be at risk of annihilation from an enemy as you are threatened with currently. This is both a challenge and an opportunity to break free from your complacency, your diminished level of belief, both in the divine and in yourselves, to once again see the possibility of greatness in a return to a state of greater holy alignment with the cause of love. That is powerful enough to not only save you from oblivion, but catapult you to a greatness far beyond your capabilities as a physical human. The choice must be made by you, and then you must follow through with action to bring this about by requesting our participation in a divine partnership. We look forward to your decision.
So I think what Creator is saying here is that holiness is not a static condition, but it's a move forward. And the way that you can really help yourself and humanity move forward the most effectively is by learning and using empowered prayer and the Lightworker Healing Protocol. You can get our prayer book at getwisdom.com/prayer, getwisdom.com/prayer, and download our ebook describing the Lightworker Healing Protocol at getwisdom.com/LHP. That's very important, Carl. Very, very important indeed.
Yes, and we kind of came out of left field perhaps for a new listener who doesn't have a clue we have an ET problem in this world and being plagued with dark spirits as well that corrupt humans and extraterrestrials also, and has made their races quite uncivilized, quite demonic and militaristic and predator like in every respect, with no conscience, no ability to love, no compassion. They're in our backyard, they're coming out in the open, we've heard, fairly soon, within the next couple of years, most likely, if the divine can't prevent that yet. So we need to work on this. And these are the tools. So you've been cautioned, you've been warned, you've been essentially encouraged again and again in this program to embrace the divine, that this is why you were created, to champion the cause of the divine. And doing so will be naturally fulfilling
Absolutely.
and your greatest possible reward.
Yeah. And life saving at the end of the day. And that's really what we're all about. That's all for this week's Get Wisdom Live. Thanks, everybody.
Be well.